speaker tonight needs very little introduction. He is the former mayor of Salt Lake City and the executive director of the High Roads for Human Rights. Please welcome to the stage, Rocky Anderson.
Thank you all for coming out. Why isn't everyone out here calling for a vindication of our constitutional rights and for the rule of law in this country? You are true patriots to be here tonight standing up for the rule of law, for accountability, and for a reversal of this nation's recent abominable history. The tradition created during these last 8 years that we need to end forever of the cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment of detainees and, in many instances, torture, which is absolutely violative of our treaty obligations and our domestic laws. How do we see ourselves, and what have we become? Who are we as a nation, as citizens and patriots, and individuals who make decisions and act in ways that either comport or conflict with fundamental moral principles? This inquiry is essential as we determine how to proceed from this day forward, and in doing so, determining who and what we really are. Let us be able to say that we took the high road, that we stood up for the values upon which our nation was founded, and that we pursued a principled moral path even when the going got rough. We are at a defining crossroads for our nation and for each of us individually. This is not about being Republicans, Democrats, Independents, anything else like that. This is about what we believe in and whether we have the courage of our convictions as we decide whether to stand for or run away from principles to which our nation has, since its founding, always laid claim. Are we committed to the rule of law and to equal justice? Or do we believe that powerful people or those they support should be exempt from our laws? Do we believe that our criminal laws and treaty obligations should be applied equally? Or do we think that powerful people in the United States should be able to pick and choose what laws should be applied to whom and under what circumstances? Do we believe that we should be held to our commitments under our solemn treaty obligations and our own federal laws? Or is our commitment to the rule of law so unprincipled and so feeble that we will allow Congress or our president to brush it aside whenever it becomes messy, difficult, or politically inconvenient? Most fundamentally, do we believe that our nation should join, for the first time in history, the company of human rights abusing countries that without any personal accountability and as a matter of official policy, kidnap people, disappear them, detain them indefinitely without any due process, and torture them? Have we become so incapable of drawing a moral line in the sand that we will stand by with hardly a whimper and permit such immoral outrages to be perpetrated in our name? And are we as a nation and as individuals so inclined toward refusing to acknowledge the truth that we are content with not knowing what abuses have taken place, by whom, and on whose authority? We know that U.S. agents, pursuant to official policies thoroughly inconsistent with several treaties and federal law, have kidnapped, disappeared, and tortured people in CIA secret prisons and at Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, and Bagram Air Base. Many have been kidnapped and sent off to the torture chambers of other nations. The accounts of kidnapping and torture are abundant. Maher Arar, a citizen of Canada, was kidnapped by the CIA, tortured, and imprisoned in horrendous conditions for a year in Syria. His innocence of any wrongdoing has been conclusively proven. In a case of mistaken identity, Khaled al-Masri, a German citizen, was kidnapped by the CIA in Macedonia and was sent to be tortured and held for several months in Afghanistan. Habibullah, killed after torture by U.S. military personnel at Bagram. Dilawar, a 22-year-old Afghan taxi driver and farmer, tortured and killed at Bagram with no evidence whatsoever of terrorist activity. Manadel al-Jamadi, killed during torture at Abu Ghraib, his corpse photographed, and U.S. soldiers photographed next to him smiling and giving a thumbs up next to his corpse. Rapes, sodomy with objects, sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme temperatures, beatings, men forced to masturbate in front of women soldiers, other sexual and religious humiliations, threats against family members, detainees driven to madness. This is not the Inquisition. It is not Argentina's dirty war. It is not El Salvador in the 1980s. It is not the Savak under the Shah of Iran or the cages of the Somozas in Nicaragua. This is cruel, sadistic, inhumane, illegal treatment of human beings perpetrated by our government, pursuant to official policies and so-called legal opinions from our government's administration's lawyers. All of it in blatant violation of Common Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions and of customary international law arising from Common Article 3, in blatant violation of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and in blatant violation of the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment. One need not be a legal scholar to understand the clear prohibitions of these treaties, all of which have been ratified by the United States. They make it clear that torture is, without exception, absolutely forbidden. The United States betrays its commitments under those treaties every single day that it turns a blind eye to the atrocities by failing to investigate and disclose the truth and call the offenders to account. Nowhere in the Geneva Conventions and the Convention Against Torture, the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, is there any provision justifying, for the sake of moving forward, the disregard of the solemn undertakings of those treaties. A president who, because he faces economic challenges or wants to avoid partisan political battles, tosses aside any accountability for egregious abuses, is himself acting in contravention of those treaties.